welcome from all of us. This is Alvi and I'm Adi, and we just had a wonderful workshop with Dana and Inga doing watercolor and talking about color. So it's quite messy here, but for now, I'm going to hand over to Alvi, and she's going to introduce Puno for us.
Hello, Puno. Welcome. Guys, good morning. It's such an honor for me to introduce you, Puno Selesho, this morning. She is a spoken word artist and has performed on local and international platforms for almost 10 years. Yesterday, she spoke and shared one of her poems at the Nation Builder Conference called A Time to Listen, to encourage better listening and less complaining in our nation. So I think we're very excited to hear that this morning. She's also going to be sharing it in her workshop this morning. She has launched a social innovation project called Harvest Books. I'd encourage you guys to go look at that on social media and so on. So Harvest Books sells pre-loved literature by African authors about African stories, and the proceeds help run a reading club in Limpopo for primary school learners. The hope is that this initiative would also encourage reading habits in learners and also help us to learn each other's stories and narratives, to just grow mutual understanding. Puno's wealth lies in her words. She wields words as a sword and wants nothing more than to uplift, inspire, and breathe hope into the world with her message. So without further ado, Puno, welcome. Over to you.
Thank you so much, ladies. That was a very lovely, very welcome. It's always my favorite part of a talk, or just hearing what people say about you and how they say it. It's always so different, and it's really cool to hear what it's like. Welcome to all of the participants. Thank you so much for joining in today. I am going to spend a very lovely hour with you. We're going to go deep. We're going to connect with the Holy Spirit. We're going to connect with God. We're going to write. We're going to do a bunch of things. I am a teacher at heart. I'm not a teacher by profession, but at heart I am. So I am going to do the best that I can to make sure that there is time for us to do the actual writing and engage in that way, and being able to actually put what we learn into practice. What I'm going to try and do is kind of give you some of the hardcore skills at the end, near the end of the session. But I'm going to start more with the core themes that I would kind of use as writing prompts for you as we journey along in this workshop. And the reason that I do that is I think the hardcore sort of practical hard skills, which is like, how do you write a poem? How do you structure a spoken word piece? How do you perform it? I think it's important, yes, but I think the content of what we write when it comes to poems and to spoken word and to any other written form, whether it's novels. I had the beautiful privilege of listening to Vespa Stamper's talk yesterday, and it was amazing. If the content is not there, if the content is not authentic, if it's not holy, if it's not in service, as Vespa had said, and not about power and glory, doesn't matter how perfect your structure is, it's not going to bless people, it's not going to empower people, it's not going to do the job. But with that said, it is important to sharpen the skills and the structure of it, because that's how you honor the content. That's how you produce excellence. And before I begin, I just want to give a shout out to the sort of core team of the Artist Gathering and the KRUX crew. This has been one of the most excellent online events that I've ever seen run. So kudos to you guys. Excellence also blesses. Excellence also carries kingdom in it. I feel like every event that I engage with from Stellenbosch, they always do things really well. So maybe it's a Stellenbosch thing. So I'm hailing from Pretoria, and you guys are currently in my little garden cottage. So welcome into my home, into my space. And this is where I've genuinely gone through the journey. So we're speaking about the lonely journey of the artist's way. I haven't read the book, The Artist's Way. I haven't done all the exercises there yet, but I have found that the artist way, my specific artist way, has been quite a cycle, and it has never been as deep as it has been this year in 2020. It hasn't been as difficult as it has been in 2020. And my art form, yes, is written word, it's poetry, it's spoken word, it's performing the poetry, and I'll give you a piece a bit later. And this year specifically, and for a very long time, my themes, or the things that I speak about, is about race and reconciliation and social cohesion. But deeper than that, the core purpose of what I do is about restoring dignity, and restoring identity, God-given, God-imprinted identity, to everyone, to whether it's people of color, different classes, whether it's women, and everyone involved, even white people, colored people, Indian people, anyone, are included in that message. And just, I think I like to use my words as a sword, because swords really do cut through, and the truth is painful, but it is also powerful. But it's like hard surgery, and I hope I do it with kindness. I hope I do it with grace. I hope I do it with love. But with that said, it's been incredibly difficult, because for it to be genuine and meaningful, God has done a lot of work in me. And that's how we get to this point where I got to look back in preparing for this workshop and be like, sure, this has been such a lonely journey, but this has been the journey that God has set out for me specifically as an artist, as a significant voice in this country, and somebody who I think is going to bring out stuff from other artists, and I hope it brings it out from you. So we will be looking into scripture. I'm going to be using Big Message Bible and tiny little, I think this is an NLT Bible, as we refer to some of the stuff. So step one in this journey of the artist way that we have, and this is your first writing prompt. So I know you guys have notebooks and pens and pencils. Please feel free to draw, to start writing, to do as we go along. Again, I will try and make sure that I have a little bit of room at the end to give time for writing, to actually engage and make it a workshop and not a talk or a lesson. So the first writing prompt is about the secret place. So I would ask for you to think on, and I'll actually give like 30 seconds of silence for you to genuinely think about it. What are the things that God has whispered into your heart in your secret place? Yeah, I'm just going to give a little bit of silence for that while I drink my lemon tea. Allow those thoughts to continue. Write keywords down. This is a time where, yes, you can be listening to me, but at the same time, please keep engaging with your notebook. For me, the secret place has been very similar to what David experienced as a shepherd boy. And I think for a lot of artists, it is that. It's getting to that very intimate, personal space with God, where his voice is so close to you and you know it. You can recognize it. In split seconds, you can recognize when it's the Holy Spirit prompting you, speaking to you, comforting you, just being your friend. When you can know when it's not your voice, when the enemy is trying to even get at you, and tell that apart from God's voice. Even when you receive counsel from people, you are able, because you've been so intimate and just in that secret cocooned space with God, you're able to be like, that word is actually not for me, or that word is actually for me. That is one of the most special and most precious places ever. There's no amount of money that can replace that. And as an artist, it is essential as we journey along on this path to get to that place as often as possible. Practical advice. I know we've had lockdown and things this year, but if you can, to have away days, as I call them. It could be one away day or many away days, but once a year I go on holiday by myself for between 4 and 7 days. And the first 2 days are an incredibly anxious time, because all the social media and all the news and all the people and the conversations that I've had bubble to the surface, and I have to process through that. And then there's a time of stillness and just being with God. And that is a way that I've kind of given room and space to making room for that intimacy with God. Also, in this year, and I'll explain a bit more of why that happened, but waking up, and Vespa also mentioned something about this yesterday, about waking up and almost clinging to the Bible as your lifeline and reading something just to be able to get through the day. That has really created a deep appetite for me for God's word, a deep appetite for me for God's presence. And I'm at this place now, it's taken about 6-7 months, where I'm not begging God for stuff in my prayer time, and I'm not begging for release, but I'm actually just like, I just want to sit in the weight of your presence. I just want to be so full. And it's from that place that I create. It's from that place that I'm able to be Jacob's ladder and hear what God is saying and find a way to translate that for the world, for the listeners. It's not always comfortable. The things that bring us to that place are not always good. For me, it was depression. I went for a few therapy sessions this year. I think lockdown was a bit of a contributor, but because I'm kind of an introvert, lockdown wasn't that bad for me. But I stepped out of a romantic relationship at the end of last year, and it was quite a traumatic experience for me. And the knock of that sent me straight into a depressive episode. And I've never been diagnosed with depression. I've always known that I've kind of had anxiety, but I never took medication for it and all of these things. But after going to therapy with the most brilliant therapist ever, who's so practical, so hands-on, God-fearing, it was amazing. And eventually getting put on antidepressants, I hit rock bottom, where literally, when I say the Bible was my lifeline, like, this little guy in me was the only thing getting me through the day. I was in a sea of sorrow. And God had to literally strip me of everything and get me to that place of darkness, the dark night of the soul, I can say, where he met me there. And it's in that intimacy that I found him. It's that intimacy where I truly understood Psalm 23. I've never understood Psalm 23 really much. Like, I'm like, okay, no, I went to a Christian school, been saying this all our lives, but Psalm 23 has just meant everything, all of the Psalms. So I'm going to read Psalm 23 before we go to the next pit stop in our journey of the artist's way. I would invite you, as I read Psalm 23, we know it very well. Don't shut down, because I know when we hear things that we've heard over and over and over for a very long time, we kind of like, yeah, cool. But close your eyes, sit with it. If you want to write whatever comes up for you, I'll leave a little bit of silence at the end. Again, what are the things that God has told you in that secret place? What do you want to do with that? Write it down, draw it. I love illustrations as well. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You prepare a feast before me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. When we get to that really dark space, let us remember that God never takes us to the valley of the shadow of death. He takes us through it. There will be an end. And I love that David ends that by saying, surely goodness and mercy will follow me. There is an assurance. There is a quiet confidence of, I know who my Father is. I know my Father is with me in this time. That this is a preparation season. This is an intentional season. But I will get through the dark valley. And that, yes, there will be a rod and staff that are chiseling and shaping me and directing me and hurting me in this time. But it is through the valley, not to it. And I just say that because sometimes as artists, when we don't have help, when we don't live in community, when we don't have even things like medication to get us through, we get stuck at this point. We get stuck at this secret place, and then we remain in isolation, and we get lost in our thoughts and our emotions and our feelings. And because we are hypersensitive, we experience the world and we take it all in, we get stuck here. So as much as this is an intimate space between you and God, take another person with you on the journey to keep you accountable, whether it is a friend or a therapist or a mentor. Listen to worship music that lifts your spirit and soul so you don't stay in the dark space. And remember, it is a season, it is a step in the journey. I'm going to give you a little bit of time just to write down anything that comes up for you. Again, it's a writing prompt. Next on the journey, we have resistance and persecution. As a Black female in South Africa, grown up in what is previously known as an Afrikaans city, Pretoria East, I've literally known no other space in terms of living. Like I just lived here. I grew up in Newlands. I was born in Sunnyside, lived in the East. I've gone to a predominantly white school. I went to Tux. I church here at 3CI, and that's also a predominantly white space. And when I say predominantly, I mean 90% to 10% kind of thing. So imagine now I'm being outspoken in my poems, in everything I do in my workshops about race and reconciliation, and I'm like, no, guys, hear me. I'm not talking in an angry tone. I'm not trying to fight you. I'm trying to say, hey, can we come together and recognize the beauty of God in every single person, regardless of race or class, and realize that we all bring a different scent and fragrance of God into the room. But if we leave people out of the room, we miss out on certain parts of God. Now, that message doesn't always land well. It's been a time. And I've been called all sorts of things. I have been called racist. I have been told that I hate Afrikaans people, apparently. I've been told that, like, people have asked me whether I'm still a Christian. People have asked me whether my head is screwed on right, whether other friends are influencing me negatively to be, a spokesperson of the world. Am I a conduit of the world? Am I doing well? I've been ripped apart character-wise in various places and spaces. I've been on the receiving end of things, even on YouTube, because a lot of my poems are on there. And in some of the comment sections, people have said things like, why do I still carry a chip on my shoulder as well as on my bottom? Well, it's hard. And something that was so special from what Vespa had said yesterday was how we don't really have to, it's okay, Yanni. We don't really have to be understood. And I think I've only gotten to that place literally in the last 2 months where I'm like, God, only you know the shape of my soul. Only you understand the shape of my soul. And in this year, in the last 6-7 months of going through this dark time, I was engaging in Isaiah and Jeremiah. And specifically, Jeremiah's journey was hard. Like, Jeremiah was like, guys, this is what God is telling me to say. And he said it. Like, what he heard in the secret place, he said it. And everyone was like, talking nonsense. That's not from God. God said, we must do this. You're saying we must do this. Get out of here. He was thrown into cisterns. He was hunted down. He was almost killed. And he was just like, God. But he couldn't deny what he heard in the secret place because it was that authentic. And he had to carry on his message. So we will be misunderstood. It will be painful, but it is an important step because I know that I am getting trained in the area of prophecy. And I believe that artists have prophetic callings, especially artists that use words. The same way, and again, I keep referring to Vespa's workshop yesterday or her talk yesterday, the same way God used art to bring reality into being, we use words to bring things into being. When we say, your kingdom come, your will be done, we are going to use our words first. The words come first, and people don't see what we see. And then the rest, it'll follow, it'll happen, it'll come. We are prophetic, but being a prophet can be lonely, because sometimes people won't get it. And I just want to read something to you this is the Message version of the Bible, in Matthew 5, which says, "You are blessed when your commitment to God provokes persecution. The persecution drives you even deeper into God's kingdom. Not only that, count yourselves blessed every time people put you down or speak or throw you out or speak lies about you to discredit me. What it means is that the truth is too close for comfort and they are uncomfortable. You can be glad when that happens. Give a cheer even though they don't like it. I do." The very Christianese thing of saying we perform for an audience of one. This is when it's become real for me this year, when I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. "And all of heaven applauds and know that you are in good company. My prophets and witnesses have always gotten into this kind of trouble. My prophets and witnesses have always gotten into this kind of trouble." Like, just like the persistent widow in, I think it's Luke 18, we just have to be persistent in what we know to be true. But in order to do that, we need to not stand on our word and our thoughts and our convictions, not on our agenda, but on God's. Because clearly God is on our side. He's like, don't worry about it. People throw stones at you. They're actually throwing stones at me, but don't worry, I got you. But again, an example for me is I've written a poem which I'll invite you to check out on YouTube called Swat Khafar, which is a play on the words of Black Danger, which used to be used long ago in apartheid times, and just how it's still subconsciously a narrative that we have today. And that has been the poem that has received the most sort of like pushback. It's about 2 years old. And when I read this in Jeremiah 15, verse 15 as well, I understood Jeremiah's cry here. So it's a bit of a long one that I'm going to read. But in this time, again, I invite you, listen with your heart, absorb it, take it in, write whatever comes up to mind. The second writing prompt is, what has happened for you in the resistance and in the place of persecution? What have you experienced? What are you going to stand on in order to keep you going and not shy away from your calling, not shy away from your words, and not shy away from what you know God is saying for you to say? Lord, you know what's happening to me. Please step in and help me. Punish my persecutors, which I never find fine. Like, even David always tells people to, like, strike my enemies down. I'm always like, I don't have the heart to say that. Please give me time. Don't let me die young. It is for your sake that I am suffering. When I discovered your words, I devoured them. They are my joy and my heart's delight, for I bear your name. O Lord God of heaven's armies. And I need to pause there, because you need to understand, if we are like soldiers in God's army and we write and we use our pens to wield our swords and our words, we need to understand who our commander is. It is the Lord of heaven's armies. There is no name more powerful than that for me. There is strength there. And in these times of resistance and persecution, when we are speaking out on the things that we know to be true, we need to understand that our commander is the Lord of heaven's armies. So we do so in obedience, number one, but we do so also knowing that we are protected. I never joined the people in their merry feasts. And again, we speak about isolation. I sat alone because your hand was on me. I was filled with indignation at their sins when we call out things that we see in the world, when we call out injustice, when we call out sin, when we call out pain where there's supposed to be beauty. Why then does my suffering continue? Why is my wound so incurable? Your help seems as uncertain as a seasoned brook, like a spring that has gone dry. And that for me has been so beautiful, that God has encouraged me to express when I'm so discontent, when I'm weary, when I'm uncertain, when I'm scared, when it feels like a dry winter. And even though we know spring comes, we forget when we, like, you know, that middle of June winter when the wind is like biting you. We forget. So it's good to express that to God. Don't shy away from being genuine with God about your thoughts and feelings. But this is how the Lord responds. If you return to me, I will restore you, so you can continue to serve me. If you speak good words rather than worthless ones. And to pause there, what has been cool for me is God has convicted me about swearing. Like, I would swear when I stub my toe or somebody cuts me off. And he's like, I want you to speak good words. In me training you on this artist way, speak good words, not useless words. And the thing of return to me. As artists, as writers, and specifically as people who use words, we need to pursue a life of righteousness. Yes, our righteousness, our cloak of righteousness is only because of Jesus, only because of what Jesus did for us. But we need to pursue that lifestyle because we need to be people who practice what we preach, because people will hold us accountable for our words. And that's why he says, if you return to me, I will restore you. You will influence them, but don't let them influence you. They will fight against you like an attacking army, but I'll make you as secure as a fortified wall of bronze. They will not conquer you, for I am with you to protect and rescue you. I, the Lord, have spoken. And that has definitely gotten me through this time of, again, the persecution and being like, cool, I'm alongside the prophets of Jeremiah. I am just like, I'm there. So don't shy away. Be honest with yourself with the message that God has given you and wield it well. Because this is, again, I think, another writing prompt that you can use. Think of pregnancy. What are you pregnant with? My mom always uses this example. She always speaks about the groaning of pregnancy when something is being birthed within you, whether it's words, whether it's a message, whether it's a specific art piece, whether it's a business, whether it's I don't know, you have a ministry that you want to start. It takes time for it to develop and grow within you. You need to protect it. You need to feed it. You need to know that you are carrying something worthy. So you need to eat well. You need to sleep well. You need to exercise. You need to feed good words, good messages, good input in you. So you make sure that that thing that is being birthed within you does not get aborted prematurely by bad friends, by bad influences. That's why God takes us to the secret place to protect what is in you that will be birthed. And know that pregnancy doesn't last forever, right? At one point, it will be birthed. But you have to do what it takes to protect that things through persecution, through isolation. So that's the second journey, or the second part of the journey in the artist's way, is resistance and persecution. What is the third part? The third part is a time to be brave. You can only be brave when you know you're standing on the name of the Lord of Heaven's armies. You do not become brave because, again, of your own agendas. You do not become brave because you are such a great artist. Yes, God will teach you and equip you and show you excellence. And you know, he's very specific in, for instance, his specifications in building the temple. He loves good things. But your bravery is because of what you've learned on your journey. And that bravery for me reminds me so much of David. We circle back to David when he was called upon by God to pick his 5 stones and to chuck them at Goliath. I don't think there is a braver moment than that. And I'm going to read his speech to you in a second. But first, leading up to that, there was, you know, they were talking about like, oh, Goliath, he's so big and like strong and like scary and like, ooh, you know, all of these things. And there's this beautiful, just one line in 1 Samuel 17 in the Message where it says, enter David, full stop, boom. And I was like, yo, can you imagine in a boxing ring, they just call you out, they're like, enter Puno. Like, everything changes. Like, that is the game changer. You are going to be a game changer. Your words are going to be game changers in this world. We are the people who are writing the narrative of the future. We are the people who are leading the way. Artists lead the way. That is why we are trained in silence, in secret, so that we can steward it well. So that when they say, enter Puno, enter Lisa, enter Mary, enter whoever, people are like, oh, now the party started. Now it's getting serious. And the writing prompt that I have for you here now, which I'd welcome you to or invite you rather to write down, as we're going to have a time of just writing some of the poetry. is, what are your 5 stones? David had 5 stones, and he chose one and used it when he was fighting his Goliath. What are your 5 stones? For me, my Goliath has been racism, has been, protecting and speaking up on behalf of the least of these. And you can extrapolate that in whatever way you want to. That has been my Goliath. My 5 stones have been very clearly words, poetry, and I do distinguish the two because words can be used in different forms. Poetry is a specific form of using words. Love, because without love, like you're just a clanging gong. It's conversations, because I believe that I watched Netflix yesterday. I was watching The Social Experiment, and just how the internet and social media has really cut us off from engaging in one another, and how it's caused chaos when it comes to social matters and political matters. But when we step out of that world and have an actual conversation, person to person, heart to heart, child of God to child of God, it changes the game completely. And the 5th one is food. Breaking bread with people levels the playing field. We become equal when we come to a dinner table, and we become human. Those are my 5 stones that I use on this battlefield that God has called me to. What are yours? And I just close your eyes and picture the scene in Gladiator when Marcus Aurelius, I think, or Maximus, I can't remember. Maximus? I think Maximus is the main guy. He's standing there and he's in the middle of the Colosseum, and it's just this mighty moment. And picture yourself in that place. And this is what David says to Goliath, and it is just the best. David replied to the Philistine, "You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the army of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. Then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know, because you have stewarded your words well, that there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with sword, not with spear." And I'll add, it's going to be with your words. "This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us." Once we've gone from isolation, we've faced resistance, we've faced persecution. David himself goes on to face even more persecution, and even his brothers were annoying. We will get these moments time and time again, and that is why I started by saying the lonely journey of the artist's way is not linear, it's a cycle. Once I've completed what I'm busy with and what I'm doing now in my city, I will close it off and I'll move somewhere else, and God will give me another mission, and the cycle will continue, and he'll teach me more, and layer upon layer, and there'll be more resistance, but there will be a time again where I get to have a moment like this. And I have had a moment like this. I've had beautiful opportunities to present my poem. One of them is called Daughter, where I speak about the beauty of a young black girl, the beauty of a young white girl, and how it's important for them to see each other's beauty. And us, as their mothers, as their sisters, as their aunts, we are responsible to make that happen. And I presented them. And that for me was a Goliath moment. I didn't come with sword and spear, but I came with my 5 stones, my 5 smooth stones. All right, my friends. You're welcome to continue writing if you're still busy. You can put me on mute. And at some point, I will invite maybe one or two of you to just share if you are comfortable sharing. Or if no one's comfortable sharing, we'll just have question and answer. But before that, I'm going to, my laptop screen is behind you, so my eyes are going to flicker up and down. I'm going to read the poem, A Time to Listen, which is just an example of my activism. Activism carries such a negative connotation, but this is part of my 5 stones. This is what I use on my battlefield. These are the words that I believe God has given me to share with our nation. So here it is, A Time to Listen. 2020. Sure. What a year this has been. But with hope, we can mine resilience from our bones. Our hands will continue to build, shape, move, and make, guided by a relentless optimism. In this way, we begin to regenerate, to recreate a nation, an array of cultures, bonded and bound by trust. It is only in partnership that we truly begin to understand the true extent of our tough. But before we sprint into the new normal, we must heal the old. Pause here. Stop. Lament. Bring stillness to your own chaos and listen to our society's pulse. Can you hear? It is sad and slow. Its heart no longer recognizes its own home. This body has been torn apart, divided, isolated, limbs no longer in sync, right arm no longer mirrors the left, each leg marching to its own beat. These hips no longer swing, feet falling fast over one another. We are a sorry sight for this body's eyes. South Africa, it is because you have blocked your ears, each one tooting their own horn too loud to hear the other's sound. Our beautiful, rich stories are disappearing into a cacophony of self-made misery. So please, pause, stop, bring stillness to your complaining tongue. Let us learn to listen with our ears, with our minds, with our hearts, and with our will. Then watch. Our eyes will open to let light in. Different tongues will drum, translated through love. These feet will be guided by the rhythms of peace. Our armor will be held together by truth. Our arms will work well together to build. And we will be part of a greater, growing, healing humanity. This is our chance to shape a brighter, better, bigger, new reality. Friends, from today, let us listen.
So much, Puno. Yes, even from my side, just personally, thank you. This has been really valuable to all of us, and do hope we can meet in person sometime and have like a good KA and have some of those real conversations you talked about. I think that's so important. Puno is not leaving us. She's going to be at the panel discussion too, so we're really excited to spend more time with you then. So, but for now, we're going to head off to Marika's workshop. Make sure you've got your art materials and your little food thingies ready, and then we'll see you just now. Cool, thank you.